Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the show today. I have on the line with me Deborah Boswell. I'm excited to have Deborah here with us. She has been speaking professionally 18 years, an astounding 18 years. The content Deborah speaks on is communication. She speaks primarily in the U.S. She is based out of Alabama. Her background is in speech pathology, and she has a book in the works. Deborah, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you, Andy.
Great to have you here with us, Deborah. Well, let's start off by talking about your speaking business. You're obviously talking about communication, and there's all kinds of communication. So what is it you're teaching people, and how are you helping them?
Excellent. I am working with groups and individuals. I do a lot of consulting as well, but speaking to audiences about building your own brand, your credibility, confidence through addressing the way you communicate with others. And generally, a company or a group will hire me to speak about a specific area of communication skills. Listening skills is a big, big topic, and I think we don't give it the credit it's due. Listening is a big part. I do a lot of presentation skills, coaching, consulting, and speaking around presentation skills. I talk a lot about professionalism as it relates to the way you communicate. And when I mention communication, we are speaking about verbal and nonverbal communication. So the way you sound and the way you look, and then the first few words that come out of your mouth. Are you congruent? I do a little bit in customer service, again, around a lot of the customer service training and speaking that I provide is around telephone, where people can't see you, they only hear you. And so how are you coming across dealing with a difficult customer? How do you sound when you are trying to help a customer with a problem? That kind of thing.
Okay. It kind of piqued my interest. Well, all of it did, but one especially did was the part about the first few words that come out of your mouth on the telephone. Right. Can you give us an example of what you mean about that?
Absolutely. I'll tell you a story that actually happened to me with a client. I am from the South, and I do accent modification as well. I know that I sound like a Southerner, but I can be a lot more Southern than I sound right now. And I had a prospective client who was fairly high level in a company leave me a voicemail one day, and it basically sounded like this. Hi, Deborah. This is John. Just want to leave you a message. If you will, holler back at me. I'd like to talk to you about doing some business with you. So when he said the holler back at you part, immediately I thought, wow, this is going to take some work, this individual. I had heard a little bit about what the needs were. And so when I returned the phone call, no joke, the individual answers his phone and says, John Jackson. And I said, John, this is Deborah Boswell. And he says, oh, Deborah, let me talk to you. Let me pull my truck over. So at that point, I cannot help it. It may be a sweeping generalization, but the strong Southern accent with a holler back at me, pull the truck over. I'm thinking gun rack, boots in the back, and he's a business professional. I had a visual of what this gentleman looked like. I've never met him. The day he came into my office, I almost embarrassed myself because I did not expect the person in front of me. He was very tall. He was in a very nice suit, very polished. And I actually called his name and then called his last name, indicating I couldn't believe this is you.
No kidding.
And no kidding. I handled it. I mean, it worked out. We worked together for probably 9 months, and it was a very good outcome, but we both laughed about my first impression. And that first impression was on the telephone, and it wasn't a polished impression, let's put it that way. And he definitely at that point his looks didn't match the way he sounded. So the first few words out of your mouth make a difference, whether it's a strong voice, timid, strong regional dialect of some sort, grammar. A lot of issues with grammar. I don't know if our colleges, high schools and colleges are not preparing young people but a lot of issues with grammar, and I have companies who call me with individuals who've made it to a certain point in terms of advancement, and all of a sudden people are paying attention to the fact that they have poor verb conjugation, improper pronouns, slang speech. And it matters. The higher up in a company you move or advance, the more important it is that you communicate with credibility and professionalism.
You know, I think we're all not guilty of it. It's just a human trait. You hear somebody talk and you get this impression of them. I can certainly understand why you saw in your mind what you saw.
Right. And, you know, it is, it's maybe a bias that we have for the way people sound, but the biases exist. Just like a strong Southern accent. Most people think many people think Southerners are uneducated, lacking polish and finesse. That's not always true. Unfortunately, a strong Southern accent can work against you if you're traveling. And really, you don't have to travel. We're all interacting with people from around the world. And you want to sound as close to standard American English as you can. And you want to have a good, strong voice that sounds like it's coming from a person who's confident.
Right. Now, how important is that for sales?
Very important for sales. I have been told by individuals with differing accents, whether it's Southern or Texas, which is, I guess you would call Southern, but I'm talking about deep South Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, that many times an accent can sound charming. It can sound friendly. And I think a Southern accent does sound friendly. However, maybe someone from the Northeast may sound abrupt and terse.
Right.
And maybe they don't have enough time for you. So either extreme can work against you in sales. And is there a true standard? I don't believe so, but I think we can try to move toward the pronunciation from the dictionary, just standard American English, the way we pronounce words, the slang terminology we use that may be unique to the area of the country we're from that others may not be able to understand or decode.
I'm from Colorado, and I'm originally from a small town, southeastern part, and we're fairly close to Oklahoma. And for so many years, people used to say to me, "You have a twang." You ever?
Really?
And that always used to just bug me because I don't have a twang. You know, nobody thinks they have.
Exactly right. I don't know why, especially if you don't hear it yourself, it can be bothersome. But and also what it does is it says you're from this unique part of the world, and perhaps the person saying it is indicating maybe you don't sound as good as we do on the other side of the state line, and that's always that's a downer for the person who's speaking with a difference.
I suppose so. Quite a while back, I'm in a bluegrass band, and when we got done playing, I was helping put up the equipment, and this little girl comes over to me, and she just plops down. We were playing outside. She plops down on the grass and starts talking to me. She couldn't have been more than 7. And she was just real cute, and we're talking, and just out of the blue, she goes, "You know what, mister?" I said, "What?" "You sound like a cowboy."
What did you say? How did you respond?
I just started laughing because I used to do a lot of when I would say words ending in ing, they would end in in apostrophe.
Right.
And I kind of
working and eating and drinking. Yeah.
and I think probably that's why she thought that. So I've had to work on that myself.
Yes, and isn't that amazing? Just that small change from saying working to working. You see the difference. Eating and eating.
Right.
It just, that small change can make a big difference. I'll never forget being at a conference. It was in San Diego, and had dinner with some friends and 1 or 2 glasses of wine. So I was very relaxed and not really thinking about my speech. And just kind of let my hair down, so to speak. I jumped in a taxi and said, if you'll take me to the DoubleTree or wherever the hotel was. And the man turned around and looked at me and he said, "Where are you from?" As if it couldn't have been from around there. And I said, "From Alabama." And it was a little bit offensive because it was as if I was from somewhere he'd would never go to or had never heard of.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but I'm used to it being from the South. We've become accustomed to that feedback or that reaction.
Uh-huh. Crazy. Now, as far as communication, when you're doing speeches on communication, is this part of your content, what we're talking about here?
Yes, it definitely is. Now, it depends on the region I'm speaking as to whether I would address regional dialect, but definitely I talk about the tone of the voice, building resonance, choosing words that are strong, that create a visual. Stuff and things are two words I hear overused, and you have really no visual when you hear stuff. We have a lot of stuff we need to look at. This is the stuff you requested. These are the things we need to review. Did you bring the things I asked for? No visual there. So talking about breath support for speaking, very important. Anyone who's a speaker, singer, entertainer, you as a musician, you know that breath, well, if you don't play a wind instrument, I guess it's not that important or don't sing. But if you sing or play any kind of wind instrument, you have to have proper breath support.
Sure do.
And yeah, many times people are nervous, and so what happens is the nerves come out in the sound of the voice. But I talk about that. I talk about strong presentation skills, strong eye contact, the way you dress, dressing for the audience, knowing your audience, how much information to share. Many times at company, I've done a couple of keynotes where there were specific issues in the company around communication, and they would share with me, this is what we're seeing. And so I fold that into the presentation. And, of course, listening skills. Being a mindful, attentive, engaged listener is very difficult these days because of all the distractions that we are faced with.
Yes, that can be a tough thing to do. When you're speaking about resonance a little bit ago, can you give us some insight on what you help people with resonance?
Yes. Resonance is energy in the voice. And I'm not an actress at all. I highly recommend anyone who's speaking, doing any kind of speaking, consider an acting class or an improv class. But in terms of projecting your voice, it's proper breath support, and you get a better sound if the sound is coming from a resonating cavity, that being your chest cavity on up to your mouth, your nasal passages. The more opening you have, the more resonance you speak with. And I was in an acting class once where they gave us small corks, round corks, and we would put them, no one should try this without supervision, but we would put the cork sideways between our teeth and just run through some exercises, counting from 1 to 10, 10 to 1, saying the days of the week. And, of course, it's distorted, but the point is getting the feel for more of an open oral cavity. Think about an upright bass guitar versus a flute. Which one has more resonance? The upright bass, right? Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's got a bigger resonating cavity.
Right.
And so for someone who is timid, even dialectical speech from different parts of the country, if we close up our mouth like I'm doing now and just, good morning, my name is Deborah Boswell, how are you? There's not much resonance there. Versus when I open up my mouth, you can hear the energy. Can you hear the difference?
Yes, definitely.
In the sound of my voice? Right. And so what I will do with clients is talk to them about what it feels like without the cork. And then the cork is in the mouth, it parts the teeth, it opens up. And then when the cork is out of the mouth and we're exchanging conversation and they move back into that smaller mouth opening, all I have to do is remind them of that tactile cue, so to speak, to say, imagine the cork is in your mouth. Open the mouth up more. Give me more resonance. And when you combine that with proper breath support, you have a much nicer, more pleasant sounding voice that's more robust. I always steer clear of saying speak louder because people just strain and basically yell at you, which is very unpleasant. It goes back to that resonance and breath support.
What a great tip. Now, when you're teaching that to audiences, do you have them stand up and practice that kind of thing? I'll bet that's kind of fun.
Yes, and actually without corks, my greatest fear, and I need to hire someone, an engineer of some sort, to help me develop maybe some way to retrieve the cork if someone were to swallow it. That's my biggest concern. And so typically I'll talk about 2 fingers in your mouth or 1 finger between your teeth and opening that up and counting to 10. And yes, it's humorous because people they want to do this, 1, 2, 3 with like big mouth speech, which sounds awkward, but they are getting the picture there of opening the mouth more. And usually you pair up with a partner in practice. Practice with the teeth clenched, the mouth closed, the tongue close to the hard palate, and then to change it up and practice with an open mouth posture. So it is fun. It's a lot of fun. And even one-on-one individuals think they sound horrible. But after practice, it becomes more natural.
Definitely. Now, you speak to a lot of people, but there's a lot of people you can't possibly hit in your lifetime. So do you have something on your website that people could buy to help them with that kind of thing?
Well, that's a great question. And at this point, I have, it's geared towards Southern accent, called Taming Your Wild Southern Accent. And it's taming because I'm from the South, so I can't help you lose it. I'm almost believed to lose an accent, you would have to move from that region into another region. But at this point, we are updating that. It was offered in CD format, and now we're going to offer it on YouTube and possibly as a download along with a workbook. But there may be additional information coming once I finish the book that could coordinate with strong, confident speaking, and that could be something available from the website. I do have a number of books that I recommend around communication on my website.
Okay, and
there are several YouTube videos out there that I have around Southern accent and voice projection. And
what is your website?
It is www.Deborah Boswell, and that's DEBORAH Boswell, B as in boy, OSWELL.com. So DeborahBoswell.com.
Okay. Well, Deborah, that was a lot of fun listening to hear about that. I've not heard that before. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.